You're the biggest disappointment I've ever had." Emily's words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Dr. Craig Young's pen paused mid-scribble, his eyes darting between us in that sterile office that smelled of vanilla candles and broken marriages. Outside, rain pelted the windows of his downtown practice, each drop like a tiny fist against the glass. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I sat there for a moment, letting her words sink in. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, countless anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas mornings, and late-night conversations about our dreams. All of it reduced to one crushing sentence delivered with the precision of a yoga instructor adjusting a pose. "Fair enough," I said. The therapist's eyebrows shot up. Emily blinked, clearly expecting tears, begging, or at least some kind of emotional breakdown. Instead, I felt something click inside me, like a lock finally finding its key. "Mark, how does that make you feel?" Dr. Young asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Liberated," I replied, and I meant it. If I'm such a disappointment, then Emily won't mind if I stop trying to please her. Emily shifted in her chair, her perfectly manicured fingers adjusting her designer yoga pants. Even in therapy, she looked like she'd stepped out of a wellness magazine. "That's not what I meant." "No, I think you were pretty clear." I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. "Dr. Young, thank you for your time. Emily, I'll be out of the house by tonight." "Mark, sit down. We're not done here." Emily's voice carried that commanding tone she used with her yoga students, the one that said she expected immediate compliance. "Actually, we are." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Emily? Namaste. The disappointment in me honors the disappointment in you." I could hear her sputtering behind me as I walked out into the rain. The drive home took 20 minutes, long enough for the reality to settle in. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I felt clear-headed for the first time in months, maybe years. Emily had been building up to this moment, dropping hints about my inadequacies like breadcrumbs, leading to this inevitable conclusion. Our house sat on Maple Street, a colonial with blue shutters that Emily had insisted on repainting last spring. "It needs to reflect our authentic selves," she'd said. Apparently, my authentic self was disappointing blue. I packed methodically. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, a few books. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand next to a note. "Be well, Emily. You win." The Driftwood Inn downtown had a weekly rate that fit my suddenly uncertain budget. The room smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and old cigarettes. But it was mine. No yoga mats cluttering the living room, no essential oil diffusers making everything smell like a spa, no judgmental looks when I wanted to watch the game instead of discussing chakras. My phone buzzed with texts from Emily, each one more frantic than the last. "Mark, come home. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. You can't just leave. Dr. Young says we should continue our sessions." I turned off the phone and ordered pizza. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Janet Morrison, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd handled my business contracts for years. "Divorce?" she asked, not sounding surprised. "Separation for now. I want to understand my options." "What happened?" She called me her biggest disappointment, in therapy, in front of a witness. Janet was quiet for a moment. "Mark, I've known you for 8 years. You're one of the most reliable, decent men I've met. If Emily thinks you're a disappointment, that says more about her than you." "Maybe, but I'm done trying to prove otherwise." We spent an hour going over finances, custody arrangements for the kids, property division. It was all very civilized, very adult. Emily had always prided herself on being evolved, spiritual, above the messiness of ordinary emotions. She'd appreciate the mature approach. Or so I thought. 3 days into my new life at the Driftwood Inn, I went back to the house to get more clothes. Emily was at her yoga studio, teaching her afternoon mindful flow class to a room full of suburban women seeking enlightenment through expensive athleisure. The house felt different, like a museum of someone else's life. Emily had already rearranged the living room, removing the framed photos of us together and replacing them with crystals and inspirational quotes about self-love and personal growth. I was grabbing shirts from our bedroom closet when I saw it, a phone charger plugged into the outlet on Emily's side of the bed. Not her usual iPhone charger, but a generic Android one. Emily had always been religious about Apple products, claiming they aligned better with her energy or some such nonsense. Curious, I checked her nightstand drawer. Nothing. Then I remembered her yoga bag, the expensive leather one she carried everywhere like a security blanket. She'd left it on the kitchen counter. Inside, beneath her water bottle and meditation journal, was a small Android phone I'd never seen before. The screen lit up when I touched it. No password protection. Emily had always been careless about security, trusting in the universe to protect her digital life. The phone opened to a text conversation with someone named Jake. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the messages. Jake: "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place?" Emily: "Mark's staying at that motel downtown. We have all the time we need." Jake: "Good. I missed you yesterday." Emily: "I know, baby, but we have to be careful until the divorce is final." Jake: "How much longer?" Emily: "Not long. He's so pathetic. He'll probably give me everything just to avoid a fight." I sat down heavily on one of our kitchen stools, the phone trembling in my hands. There were photos too, intimate ones that made my chest tighten with a mixture of rage and humiliation. Emily, my wife of 15 years, the mother of my children, the woman who meditated daily and preached about mindfulness and authentic living, was having an affair. But it wasn't just the betrayal that hit me. It was the calculation behind it. The timing of her biggest disappointment speech, the way she'd pushed me to leave, the convenient therapy session where she'd delivered her verdict in front of a witness. She'd been planning this. I scrolled further back in the conversation, finding messages from weeks ago. Emily: "I told him he's a disappointment. Dr. Young was there to witness it." Jake: "Perfect. That should be enough for emotional cruelty if we need it." Emily: "He's so predictable. He'll probably leave on his own and make this easy." Jake: "And then we can be together properly, no more sneaking around." Emily: "I can't wait. Mark is so boring compared to you. No passion, no vision." Jake: "What about the kids?" Emily: "They'll adjust. Kids are resilient, and frankly, Mark's a terrible role model anyway." I took screenshots of everything, then carefully placed the phone back in her bag exactly as I'd found it. My hands were steady, my breathing calm. The rage would come later, I knew, but right now I felt that same crystalline clarity I'd experienced in the therapist's office. Emily wanted a divorce? She'd get one, but not on her terms. I drove back to the Driftwood Inn and called Janet Morrison. "I need to hire a private investigator," I said. "What did you find?" I told her about the phone, the messages, the photos. Janet listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "This changes everything," she said finally. "Adultery still matters in Maine, especially when there's evidence of planning and deception. But Mark, you need to be very careful how you proceed. We can't let her know what you've discovered. Not yet." "What do you recommend?" "Document everything. The PI will get us more evidence, establish a pattern. Meanwhile, you play the part of the disappointed husband trying to work things out. Can you do that?" I thought about Emily's smug face as she delivered her verdict, about Jake's casual dismissal of my children, about the months of calculated manipulation. "Oh, I can do that," I said. "I can do that very well." That evening, Emily called me for the first time since I'd left. "Mark, we need to talk," she said, her voice soft and reasonable. "I think I was too harsh in therapy. Maybe we can work through this. I'd like that, I replied, making my voice sound hopeful, even grateful. I've been thinking about what you said, about being a disappointment. Maybe you're right. Maybe I can change. Good, she said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Why don't you come to dinner tomorrow night? I'll cook that salmon you like. That sounds wonderful, Em. Thank you for giving me another chance. After I hung up, I stared at the water-stained ceiling of my motel room and smiled. Emily thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea I'd just learned the rules to an entirely different game. The private investigator Janet recommended was a guy named Danny Ricci, Richie's cousin from the old neighborhood. Richie worked with me at the agency. Good guy, loyal, with the kind of blue-collar wisdom that cut through suburban bullshit like a hot knife through butter. Danny's discreet, Richie assured me over beers at Murphy's Pub. Did some work for my divorce 3 years ago. Got me everything I needed to keep my house and see my kids. Danny looked like an accountant. Average height, thinning hair, forgettable face. Perfect for surveillance work. Your wife's got a routine, he reported after a week of following Emily. Yoga studio Monday through Wednesday, private clients Thursday and Friday. But Saturday afternoons, she tells people she's doing a mindfulness retreat at some ashram in Portland. Let me guess, she's not meditating. Luxury hotel on the waterfront. Same room every week, registered to Jake Fallon, real estate developer, married, 2 kids. They usually arrive separately, stay about 4 hours. Danny handed me a manila envelope full of photographs. Emily walking into the hotel lobby, Emily and Jake in the hotel restaurant, Emily and Jake kissing by the elevators. The images were crystal clear, time-stamped, damning. There's more, Danny said. This Jake character's got some interesting business practices. Nothing criminal, but he's been cutting corners on his development projects, using substandard materials, paying workers under the table. His business partner, Tom Hendricks, doesn't know about any of it. How do you know Tom doesn't know? Because I told him I was doing due diligence for a potential investor and asked some pointed questions. Guy went white as a sheet when I mentioned the corner cutting. Started asking his own questions about invoices and permits. I studied the photos, feeling that familiar calm settle over me. Emily had always been proud of her Saturday retreats, posting cryptic social media messages about finding her center and connecting with her authentic self. Turns out, she was connecting with something all right. Danny, I need you to do something for me this Saturday. What's that? I'm going to crash their little retreat. Emily's yoga studio was called Mindful Body, a converted warehouse space downtown with exposed brick walls and enough plants to qualify as a greenhouse. She'd built a solid business over 5 years, attracting clients who could afford $70 private sessions and weekend workshops with names like Awakening Your Inner Goddess. I'd helped her set up the business, handling the marketing and advertising. Ironic, considering I was about to use those same skills to tear it down. Saturday afternoon, I parked across from the studio and waited. Emily's car was there, along with 2 others I recognized. Her best friend Sienna's white BMW and Harper's red Jeep. Sienna taught classes with Emily sometimes, a willowy blonde who spoke in hushed, spiritual tones about energy and intention. Harper was Emily's social media manager, constantly posting inspirational quotes and behind-the-scenes glimpses of Emily's authentic journey. At exactly 2:30, Emily emerged from the studio with both women, all of them dressed in matching retreat outfits, flowing pants, tank tops, carrying yoga mats, and overnight bags. They hugged goodbye, with Emily climbing into her car alone while Sienna and Harper headed in the opposite direction. Except Emily wasn't going to Portland for a mindfulness retreat. She was driving to meet Jake at their usual hotel. I waited 10 minutes, then walked into the studio. The front desk was unmanned. Emily always locked up when she left for her retreats. But I still had the spare key she'd given me years ago, back when I was her supportive husband instead of her biggest disappointment. The studio's main room was set up for a workshop, Mats arranged in a circle, candles lit, soft music playing from hidden speakers. A whiteboard near the front had Saturday Mindfulness Retreat, Portland Ashram, written in Emily's careful handwriting, along with her cell phone number for emergencies. I took photos of everything, then settled in to wait. At 4:15, Sienna and Harper returned, chatting and laughing as they unlocked the front door. They stopped when they saw me sitting cross-legged on one of the yoga mats. "Mark?" Sienna's voice went up an octave. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for Emily to get back from her retreat," I said pleasantly. "How was the ashram?" The two women exchanged glances. Harper, never the brightest bulb in the spiritual chandelier, started to speak, but Sienna cut her off. "Emily's still in Portland," Sienna said carefully. "The retreat runs until evening." "Funny thing," I said, standing up slowly. "I called the ashram this morning. They've never heard of Emily Grafton. In fact, they don't run Saturday programs at all." Harper's face went pale. Sienna, to her credit, kept her composure. "Maybe you called the wrong place," she said. "Maybe. Or maybe Emily's been lying about where she spends her Saturday afternoons." I pulled out my phone and showed them one of Danny's photos, Emily and Jake entering the hotel. "Recognize this mindfulness retreat?" Sienna's spiritual facade cracked. "Mark, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like my wife's been screwing around while you two provide her alibi." I kept my voice calm, conversational. "How long have you been covering for her?" "We're not covering for anything," Harper said, but her voice shook. "Emily needed space to work through some personal issues. Is that what we're calling it?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Personal issues. That's good. I'll have to remember that phrase when my lawyer asks about Emily's Saturday activities." Sienna stepped forward, trying to regain control. "Mark, you're obviously upset, but this isn't the way to handle things. Emily's going through a difficult time with your separation." "My separation?" I interrupted. "Sienna, Emily's been planning this divorce since before she called me a disappointment. She's been meeting Jake Fallon at the waterfront hotel every Saturday for months, using you two as her cover story." I showed them more photos, watching their faces as the evidence piled up. Harper looked ready to cry. Sienna looked ready to run. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to call Emily right now and tell her there's been an emergency at the studio. A pipe burst or a break-in, something that requires her immediate attention. Then you're both going to sit here and wait for her to arrive." "We're not doing that," Sienna said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, these photos go to every member of this studio, along with a detailed explanation of how Emily's been using her business to cover her affair. How do you think your mindful, authentic clients will react to that?" Harper started crying. "Mark, please." "Make the call, Sienna." She stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out her phone. "Emily? It's me. You need to come back to the studio right away. There's been an incident." I could hear Emily's voice through the phone, sharp with annoyance at having her retreat interrupted. "I can't explain over the phone," Sienna continued. "Just come back. Now." She hung up and glared at me. "You're making a mistake, Mark. Emily's going to destroy you in the divorce." "We'll see about that," I said, settling back onto the yoga mat. "We'll see about that." 25 minutes later, Emily burst through the studio door, her face flushed with anger and something else. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "What's the emergency?" she demanded, then stopped short when she saw me. "Mark, what are you doing here?" "Joining your mindfulness retreat," I said. Though I have to say, the Portland ashram looks surprisingly like the waterfront hotel. The color drained from Emily's face. Emily's reaction was everything I'd hoped for and more. She went through the classic stages, denial, anger, bargaining, all while Sienna and Harper watched from the sidelines like spectators at a car crash. "I don't know what you think you saw," Emily said, but her voice wavered. "I think I saw my wife of 15 years screwing around with Jake Fallon while her friends provided alibis." I stood up, brushing imaginary dust from my jeans. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an innocent explanation for why you've been meeting him at the same hotel room every Saturday for the past 4 months. Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Harper had stopped crying and was now staring at her phone, probably calculating how much damage this would do to Emily's social media brand. "Mark, let's talk about this privately," Emily finally managed. "Oh, now you want privacy? That's interesting. You didn't seem concerned about privacy when you were planning my emotional destruction in front of Dr. Young. That's different. Is it? Because, from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been manipulating everyone around you to get what you want. Me, the therapist, your friends, your clients, probably Jake's wife too." Sienna found her voice. "Mark, you're being cruel." "Am I?" "Let me tell you what cruel looks like, Sienna. Cruel is spending months planning to destroy someone's life while pretending to love them. Cruel is using your business and your friends to cover up an affair. Cruel is telling your husband he's a disappointment so you can justify screwing around with a married real estate developer." I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots from Emily's secret Android. "Cruel is calling your husband pathetic and your children resilient because they'll have to adjust to their mother being a cheater." Emily's face went white. "How did you get these messages? Let's just say you're not as careful with your digital security as you think." I pocketed the phone. "But don't worry, Emily. I'm not cruel. I'm just disappointed." The word hit her like a slap. She actually stepped backward. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to call Jake right now and tell him the affair is over. Then you're going to tell Sienna and Harper exactly how you've been using them. And then we're going to discuss the terms of our divorce like civilized adults." "I'm not doing any of that," Emily said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly who Emily Grafton really is. Your clients, your business partners, your meditation group, the PTA, Jake's wife, Jake's business partner, everyone." Harper looked up from her phone. "Emily, maybe you should just—" "Shut up, Harper," Emily snapped, then immediately tried to soften it. "I mean, let me handle this." But the mask was slipping. The serene yoga instructor was being replaced by something harder, more calculating. I'd seen glimpses of this version of Emily over the years, usually when she didn't get her way, but she'd always managed to cover it with spiritual language and talk about personal growth. "You can't prove anything," she said finally. "Can I?" I pulled out the manila envelope Danny had given me and spread the photographs across the reception desk. Hotel records, credit card receipts, witness statements. Oh, and my personal favorite. I showed them a photo of Emily and Jake kissing in the hotel parking lot, her hands tangled in his hair, his wedding ring clearly visible. "This was taken last Saturday, right around the time you were supposed to be achieving enlightenment at your Portland retreat." Sienna picked up one of the photos, studying it with the kind of fascination people usually reserved for traffic accidents. "Emily, is this really Jake Fallon? The guy who's building those condos by the lake?" "It doesn't matter who it is," Emily said quickly. "Actually, it does matter," I said, "because Jake's married to Sarah Fallon, who happens to be one of your yoga clients. Remember Sarah? Sweet woman, 3 kids, always talking about how much she trusts her husband." Emily's face crumpled. "Mark, please." "Please what? Please keep quiet while you destroy 2 families? Please pretend I don't know you've been lying to me for months? Please go back to being your biggest disappointment?" The studio fell silent, except for the soft meditation music still playing from the speakers. It was some kind of flute and rain sounds combination that was supposed to be soothing, but now just sounded like a soundtrack to a disaster. "What do you want?" Emily asked finally. "I want you to call Jake. Right now. End it." "And if I do?" "Then maybe we can work out a divorce settlement that doesn't involve me showing these photos to everyone we know." Emily stared at the pictures for a long moment, then pulled out her regular phone. She dialed, waited, then spoke in a voice I barely recognized. "Jake, it's me. We need to talk." "No, not tonight. It's over. Because my husband knows everything. Yes, everything." She hung up and looked at me with something approaching hatred. "There. Are you happy?" "Getting there," I said. "Now tell your friends how you've been using them." "Mark, tell them, Emily. Tell them how you've been making them accessories to your affair. Tell them how you've been lying to your clients, your family, everyone who trusted you." Emily turned to Sienna and Harper, both of whom were watching her with expressions of growing horror. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I never meant for it to go this far." "But it did go this far," I said. "And now we all get to live with the consequences." I gathered up the photographs and put them back in the envelope. "Ladies, it's been educational. Emily, have your lawyer call mine. We have a lot to discuss." I was almost to the door when Emily called after me. "Mark, wait." I turned around. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, all pretense of spiritual composure gone. "I really am sorry," she said, "about all of it. You didn't deserve this." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the text messages, the calculated cruelty, the months of manipulation. "You're right," I said. "I didn't deserve this. But Emily, you do." I walked out into the late afternoon sunshine, leaving my wife and her co-conspirators to figure out how to clean up the mess they'd made. Behind me, I could hear Harper starting to cry again, and Sienna's voice, no longer hushed and spiritual, raised in anger. The game was just getting started. Jake Fallon turned out to be exactly what I'd expected. Mid-30s, artificially white teeth, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits to casual events and called everyone buddy or chief. His real estate development company, Fallon Properties, had been putting up luxury condos around town for the past 3 years, each project promising sophisticated living for the discerning buyer. Danny's research revealed that Jake's sophistication was mostly surface deep. He cut corners on materials, hired undocumented workers to save on labor costs, and had a habit of promising amenities that never quite materialized. His business partner, Tom Hendricks, handled the financial side while Jake focused on sales and marketing, which apparently included seducing his clients' wives. "Tom's getting suspicious," Danny reported during our Tuesday morning meeting at Murphy's Pub. "Started asking questions about invoices, permits, worker documentation. Jake's been deflecting, but Tom's no dummy." "What about Jake's wife? Sarah? Sweet woman, like you said. Volunteers at the kids' school, runs the church bake sale, completely clueless about her husband's extracurricular activities." I sipped my coffee and studied the latest batch of photos Danny had taken. Jake arriving at various construction sites, Jake meeting with city officials, Jake having lunch with potential investors. All very normal, very respectable. What's his current project? Lakeside luxury condominiums. 24 units, supposed to be move-in ready by Christmas. He's been using it as his personal showcase, bringing potential buyers through the model unit. The same model unit where he was planning to take Emily? Danny grinned. The very same. Amazing coincidence, right? I'd discovered Jake and Emily's latest plan through her second phone, which I'd been monitoring remotely thanks to some software Danny had installed. They were planning a romantic evening at the condo development, a kind of preview of their life together once their respective divorces were finalized. "When?" I asked. "Friday night. Jake's got the security codes and the construction crew doesn't work weekends." "Perfect." I spent the rest of the week making preparations. The plan was simple, elegant, and completely legal, which was important, since I had no intention of giving Emily any ammunition to use against me in divorce court. Friday afternoon, I drove out to Lakeside luxury condominiums with a trunk full of supplies. The development sat on a hill overlooking Mirror Lake, a pristine body of water that reflected the autumn foliage like a postcard. Jake had chosen the location well. It was isolated enough for privacy, but close enough to town for convenience. The model unit was on the second floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony overlooking the lake. Jake had spared no expense on the staging, expensive furniture, artwork, even fresh flowers. It looked like something out of a home decorating magazine. I let myself in through the construction entrance, using the key code Danny had obtained from one of Jake's workers. The unit was empty, quiet except for the sound of wind through the unfinished walls of the adjacent condos. Working quickly, I set up my surprises. First, the paint bombs, small balloons filled with washable but incredibly messy paint, rigged to burst when the bedroom door opened. The paint was hot pink, Emily's least favorite color. Second, the glitter cannons, devices normally used for gender reveal parties, positioned to spray biodegradable glitter throughout the living room when triggered by motion sensors. Third, the sound system. Portable speakers hidden throughout the unit, connected to my phone via Bluetooth, ready to play a carefully curated playlist at maximum volume. Finally, the cameras, tiny wireless devices that would record everything and stream it directly to my laptop. It was juvenile maybe, but it was also legal, non-violent, and guaranteed to make a point. I finished the setup just as the sun was setting over Mirror Lake, painting the water gold and orange. It really was a beautiful location. Too bad Jake and Emily wouldn't be able to appreciate it. At exactly 8:30 p.m., Jake's BMW pulled into the development parking lot. He got out first, looking around nervously, then opened the passenger door for Emily. She emerged wearing a flowing dress and carrying an overnight bag, looking like she was heading to a romantic weekend getaway instead of a tawdry affair. They walked hand in hand toward the building entrance, Jake pointing out features of the development like a tour guide. I could hear their voices through the open windows of the unit below mine. "This is going to be perfect for us," Emily was saying. "A fresh start, away from all the negative energy." "Just wait until you see the master suite," Jake replied. "I had them install a skylight so you can do yoga while watching the sunrise." How thoughtful. Jake had turned adultery into a wellness experience. They disappeared into the building, and I tracked their progress on my laptop screen as they climbed the stairs to the second floor. Emily was chattering about feng shui and natural light while Jake fumbled with the key code. The door opened, and they stepped into the living room. "Oh, Jake, it's beautiful," Emily breathed, setting down her overnight bag and turning in a slow circle to take in the staged furniture and lake view. "Wait until you see the bedroom," Jake said, moving toward the hallway. I held my breath, finger hovering over the trigger button on my phone. Jake reached for the bedroom door handle. Splat. The paint bombs exploded simultaneously, coating Jake in hot pink paint from head to toe. He stumbled backward, sputtering and wiping paint from his eyes, just as the motion sensors detected movement in the living room. Poof, poof, poof. The glitter cannons fired in sequence, filling the air with thousands of tiny sparkles that stuck to everything: the furniture, the walls, Emily's flowing dress, Jake's paint-covered suit. "What the hell?" Jake started to shout, but I cut him off by activating the sound system. The opening notes of "I Will Survive" filled the condo at maximum volume, followed by my own voice speaking through the speakers. "Good evening, Emily and Jake. Welcome to your new life together. I hope you find it as disappointing as you found me." Emily screamed, spinning around as if she could locate the source of my voice. Glitter fell from her hair like fairy dust. "Mark," she shouted over the music. "Mark, I know you're here." "Actually, I'm not," my recorded voice continued. "I'm at Murphy's pub with about 20 witnesses, establishing my alibi for this evening. But I wanted to give you both a housewarming gift to celebrate your authentic love." Jake was trying to wipe paint from his face with his shirt, which only spread it around more. "This is vandalism. I'm calling the police." "Please do," my voice replied. I'm sure they'll be very interested in how you obtained access to this private property for your romantic evening. I'm also sure your business partner, Tom, will be fascinated to learn that you've been using company assets for personal entertainment. The music switched to Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood, which seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Emily was crying now, black mascara mixing with pink paint and silver glitter to create abstract art on her cheeks. Mark, please, we can work this out. We already worked it out, my voice said. You called me your biggest disappointment, remember? Well, congratulations. You've officially exceeded my expectations. Jake found one of the hidden speakers and smashed it against the wall, but the others kept playing. He looked around wildly, trying to locate the cameras, paint dripping from his expensive suit onto the hardwood floors. This isn't over, he shouted at the ceiling. You're absolutely right, my recorded voice agreed. It's not over. Emily, check your email. Jake, check yours too. I've sent some interesting photos to your respective contact lists. Both of them lunged for their phones simultaneously. Emily got to hers first, her face going white as she opened her email. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, he sent them to everyone. Everyone? Jake grabbed his phone, his hands shaking as he scrolled through his messages. My wife, my business partner, the city planning commission? Everyone, my voice confirmed cheerfully. Your families, your friends, your business associates, your clients. I believe in transparency in all relationships. The music switched to Somebody That I Used to Know, and I couldn't help but smile at the appropriateness of the lyrics. Emily sank onto the paint-splattered couch, glitter falling around her like snow. My clients, she moaned. My business. My children. Should have thought of that before you decided I was disappointing, my voice said. But hey, look on the bright side. Now you can be disappointing together. Jake was pacing around the room like a caged animal, leaving pink footprints on the expensive area rug. I'll sue you for this. I'll have you arrested. You'll what, Jake? Explain to a judge why you were trespassing in your own development with another man's wife? Tell the police how you've been embezzling company funds to pay for hotel rooms? Maybe discuss with the IRS how you've been paying workers under the table? Jake stopped pacing. That's right, my voice continued. I know all about your business practices. Amazing what a good private investigator can dig up when he puts his mind to it. The final song began playing, Hit the Road, Jack, and I decided it was time for my closing statement. Emily and Jake, I want to thank you both for teaching me an important lesson about disappointment. You see, I thought being called disappointing was the worst thing that could happen to me. Turns out, I was wrong. The worst thing that could happen was staying married to someone who thought I was disappointing. Emily looked up at one of the cameras, her face streaked with tears and paint. Mark, please. So thank you, my voice continued, for setting me free. Enjoy your new life together. Try not to disappoint each other. The music stopped. The condo fell silent except for the sound of Emily sobbing and Jake's heavy breathing. I closed my laptop and headed back to Murphy's Pub, where Richie and half the construction crew were waiting to hear how my evening had gone. It had gone very well indeed.